Claire checked her watch for the third time in a minute. Her flight to New York was scheduled to depart in just over an hour, and the morning traffic in Atlanta was crawling at a glacial pace. Her heart pounded as the taxi inched forward. Today wasn't just another business trip, it was the trip, a face-to-face final interview for the creative director position at Westridge & Co., EATAT, a company she'd dreamed of working for since college. The kind of role people move cities for. The kind of chance you don't get twice. She tapped her fingers nervously on the seat, half listening to the driver's radio and half praying the security line wouldn't be long. The second the taxi pulled up in front of Terminal B, she tossed a hurried thanks, grabbed her carry-on and sprinted through the glass doors. That's when she saw him. An elderly black man lay sprawled on the sidewalk just outside the entrance. A cracked cane lay a few feet away. His groceries, 2 bags from a discount market, had burst open, apples rolling near the curb. Dozens of people streamed past. Some glanced. Most didn't even notice. Claire stopped. Just for a second. She could still make it. Gate C12 wasn't far. The man wasn't bleeding. Maybe someone else would help. A security guard, an airport staff member. But no one stopped. He groaned as he tried to sit up, wincing, gripping his side. Claire bit her lip, then turned around and walked back. "Are you okay?" she asked, kneeling beside him. The man looked up, surprised. His eyes were cloudy with age but alert. "Just slipped," he muttered. "My hip. I think I landed on it wrong." She offered her arm. "Let's get you sitting up, okay?" It took effort. He was heavier than he looked, and the pain made him grit his teeth. Claire flagged down a distracted worker from inside, who shrugged and said they couldn't assist without paperwork. "Of course not," she muttered under her breath. She helped him sit against the wall and looked him over. His coat was threadbare, but he was clean. His voice had a rasp, but there was a quiet dignity in it. "I need to call someone," she said. "An ambulance?" No ambulance. Can't afford that." He waved her off. "But there's a clinic just 10 minutes from here, on Waverly. You think you could—" He didn't finish. Claire had already made the decision. She called another cab and helped him into it. The driver rolled his eyes but said nothing. All the while, Claire kept checking the time. She knew the gate would close soon. She also knew she wouldn't make it. Not anymore. At the clinic, the nurse asked for his name. He just said George. No ID, no insurance. Claire quietly paid the intake fee, then waited until a doctor came to check on him. "He's going to be fine," the nurse told her later. "Bruised rib. He'll need some rest, maybe some help for a few days." Claire sighed with relief and finally stepped outside to make the call she'd been dreading. She dialed the number the company had given her. The assistant answered, polite but rushed. "Hi. This is Claire Weston. I won't make my flight. Something came up. I know this is last minute, but I was wondering." "I'm sorry, Miss Weston," the assistant cut her off. "The panel's only meeting today. If you're not in New York by noon, the opportunity passes. We wish you the best in your future pursuits." Click. Claire stood there, stunned, then sat on the bench outside the clinic. Her phone slid into her lap. She'd thrown away her one shot. For a stranger, she wasn't even sure why she did it. The door behind her opened, and George stepped out, holding a small prescription bag, and moving gingerly. He sat beside her, breathing heavily. "You didn't have to do all that, miss," he said. "I know," Claire replied. "I just couldn't leave you there." George gave a slow nod. "Most people would've. I see it all the time." He reached into his coat, and pulled out something, a small carved wooden keychain, looked handmade. He pressed it into her palm. "For you, I can't accept this," she protested. "You already did more than most would. It's just wood. But I carved it when my son was born. Reminds me that good still exists." She looked at him, surprised. "Thank you." He just smiled. She never even asked his last name, and by the time she looked up again, the man was gone, swallowed into the city, like a ghost that never needed help in the first place. The taxi ride back to her apartment felt longer than usual. Kate sat in the back seat, staring blankly out the window. The Atlanta skyline blurred past, but her mind was somewhere else, somewhere between regret and confusion. Her career, her goals, Everything she'd worked so hard for, gone. All because of a decision she wasn't sure even made sense. She unlocked the door to her small apartment, dropped her bag, and sank onto the couch without taking off her shoes. The silence in the room was deafening. Her phone buzzed with a text from her friend Jasmine. "Did you make the flight?" Kate stared at it for a moment, before replying. "No, I missed it," helped an old man who fell outside the airport. A few seconds later, Jasmine called. "You did what?" Kate sighed. "I saw this man, old hurt. Everyone just walked past him. I couldn't do that." "You missed the interview." "Yeah, they said there's no second chance." Jasmine paused, then said softly, "You did the right thing, Claire. That kind of humanity. It's rare. Don't let a job make you question that." Kate sighed. Claire didn't answer. Her chest felt heavy. She wanted to believe Jasmine, but reality didn't pay rent. Across town, in a quiet craftsman-style house, tucked behind a modest gate, George Baker sat in a worn recliner, wrapped in a heating pad. His ribs ached, but not as badly as his pride. Still, something about that young woman stayed in his mind. Her voice, her patience, the way she didn't even ask who he was, or why he was alone. He reached for the landline beside him, and dialed. A deep voice answered on the second ring. "Hey Pops. You okay?" "Yeah, boy. I'm all right. Took a spill at the airport today. Some lady helped me out." "Wait. What? You went to the airport? Just to get some things near there?" "Slipped on the sidewalk." "Jesus, Dad. Did anyone help you?" "That's what I'm saying. Most folks just kept walking. But this white woman, young, dressed for business, she stopped. Missed her flight, to get me to a clinic." "That's rare, George," his son said after a pause. "I know, she didn't even ask for anything. Just said she couldn't leave me there. Paid for the doctor. Waited around. Gave me the time of day, like I mattered." "What was her name?" "Claire." Didn't catch her last name. On the other end of the line, Mason Baker leaned back in his office chair, and looked out at the private tarmac below. Jets were parked like toys under the late afternoon sun. He managed one of the fastest growing airline companies in the US, Verta Air, built it from scratch, after years of learning under people who always looked down on him. They wore suits, and shook hands with smiles they didn't mean, called him the smart one, but never the right kind. Always something behind their eyes. He had worked hard, harder than most. And now he sat on the board, owned the planes, signed the checks, but he never forgot the janitors, the baggage handlers, the mechanics, like his dad had been, a war vet who'd fixed fighter jets, and later commercial aircraft, until his hands got too stiff from age and arthritis. Mason frowned. Most of the people in first class wouldn't even see his father on the ground, would have walked right past him. But this woman, Claire, she stopped, gave something without needing anything back. He tapped a few keys on his desk computer, and opened the internal system. "Claire. What did Dad say?" "Claire. Something. Young, white. Business clothes. Missed a flight from Atlanta to New York. Around 9 a.m. He pulled up the manifest. 3 women named Claire had tickets on that flight. 2 boarded. 1 didn't. Claire Weston. He clicked her profile. A regular customer. Flown economy 6 times in the past year. Paid with her own card. No corporate billing. Traveled light. He sat back, intrigued. There was something different here. Maybe it was time for someone like her to sit in first class. Or maybe something more. 3 days passed. Claire had gone from refreshing her inbox every hour to not checking it at all. Her resume had been perfect, her cover letter passionate, but that dream opportunity was gone. She tried not to think about what could have been. The bills, however, didn't care about principals or missed planes. It was late afternoon when her phone rang. An unfamiliar number. She hesitated before answering. "Hi, is this Claire Weston?" "Yes, speaking." "Hi, my name's Alicia from Northline Creative. We came across your profile on a freelance network. There's a small branding project that might fit your skill set. It's short-term but paid. Interested?" Claire blinked, caught off guard. Sure. I mean yes. I'm interested." "Great. The client would like to meet in person, just to discuss some early ideas. Are you available tomorrow at 11 a.m.? Cafe Mercurio, downtown. Absolutely, thank you. She hung up, confused but relieved. It wasn't the job she'd missed, but it was something. And right now, something was enough. The next day, she arrived 10 minutes early. Cafe Mercurio was a cozy little spot tucked between two high-rises, the kind of place people walked past 100 times and never noticed. The interior was quiet, filled with warm light, brick walls and the smell of fresh espresso. Claire chose a table by the window and tried not to fidget. She'd brought her portfolio, though she wasn't sure how formal this would be. A man entered the cafe precisely at 11. He was tall, clean-cut, with a calm presence, dressed in a button-down and jeans. Casual. But there was something polished about him. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on her. "Claire Weston?" he asked with a polite smile. "That's me. Nice to meet you. I'm Mason, just a manager with the startup that needs your help." She stood to shake his hand, and something about him seemed familiar. His voice maybe. But she didn't place it. They sat. Mason ordered a black coffee. Claire declined anything. "So, tell me about your work," he asked. Genuinely interested, Claire explained her background in marketing and brand storytelling. She mentioned some past projects, a mix of corporate and nonprofit, but there was a weariness in her voice, like someone who had been trying too hard for too long. "I'm in a bit of a reset, to be honest," she admitted. "Life threw a curveball recently." "What happened?" Mason asked, tilting his head. She paused. "I missed a flight for an important meeting, helped someone outside the airport. Old man. He fell. No one else stopped. I did." She looked down at her hands. "Sometimes I wonder if that was foolish. That opportunity was huge." Mason smiled softly, but didn't reveal anything. "Sounds like integrity to me. Rare stuff these days." Claire shrugged. "Integrity doesn't pay rent. Maybe not today. But it leaves a mark." They spoke for almost an hour. Mason asked thoughtful questions. Claire gave honest answers. There was no performance. No networking smile. Just two people talking like adults. At one point Claire laughed. The first real laugh she'd had in days. "So this startup," she said near the end. "What's it about?" "Early stage aviation tech. Some brand repositioning. Some investor decks. Pretty dry stuff. But I think you'd be good at it." Claire narrowed her eyes. "You sure? I mean, I've never done aviation. We're not looking for industry people. We're looking for perspective. Real voice. You have that." She nodded slowly. This wasn't what she expected, but there was something grounding in how he said it. He wasn't overselling anything. "Okay. I'm in. Let's do it." "Great," Mason said, finishing his coffee. "I'll send the brief tonight. And Claire, thanks for taking this meeting." She smiled. "Thanks for calling me." As he walked out of the cafe, Mason didn't look back. But he was smiling. He'd met the woman who stopped for his father. And she didn't even know it. The weeks passed quietly. But not without change. What began as a small freelance project evolved into something deeper. Claire and Mason met often. At first to discuss slides, branding language, font choices. But slowly meetings stretched longer, drifting from business into laughter, shared meals and walks that had nothing to do with work. He never pushed, never flirted in ways that felt transactional. Instead, he listened, asked how she was sleeping, asked what her mother used to cook, asked what scared her when she was little. Claire started looking forward to those talks more than she wanted to admit. One Tuesday morning, after finalizing a presentation deck, Mason suggested they visit a local shelter. "It's something my father's involved in," he said casually. "I try to help when I can. Want to come?" Claire hesitated. She had no issue with the idea. In fact, it warmed her, but it felt oddly personal. Still, something in his tone made her say yes. They drove in silence most of the way, soft music playing on the radio. The shelter wasn't what she expected. It was clean, modest, full of movement. Men gathered around folding tables, chatting, some playing cards, others cleaning. As soon as they walked in, several men straightened up. "Mr. George's boy," one of them called out with a wide grin. And look at you, bringing a lady today. Mason chuckled and waved. Claire was surprised to see how many men greeted him, some with handshakes, others with warm nods. Then an older man stepped out of a small office at the back. Her breath caught slightly. It was the man she'd helped at the airport. He was standing now, cane in one hand, posture straighter than before. He had the quiet pride of someone who'd lived hard and come through the other side. Claire whispered to Mason, "That's him." "Who?" "The man I told you about. At the airport." Mason smiled, but didn't answer right away. Instead, he motioned her toward the older man. Claire approached. "Hey, I don't know if you remember me." The man turned, recognition blooming in his eyes. "Of course I do," he said, his voice steady and kind. "You were the only one who stopped." "I haven't forgotten." Claire's throat tightened. "I never even asked your name." "George," he said, reaching out his hand. "George Baker." She took it. "It's good to see you up and moving, George." "That's thanks to you, young lady. I've had my share of knocks. But that day that was different. Most people don't see us. You did." He nodded toward Mason. "You're in good company. This one sees people too." Claire glanced at Mason, feeling a strange warmth in her chest. George excused himself to greet someone else, and she turned to Mason. "You didn't tell me." "Didn't think it was mine to tell." They spent the afternoon helping serve meals. Claire found herself talking to the residents, not just about their needs, but about their stories. One man used to teach jazz theory, another built furniture by hand, another simply said he hadn't heard his daughter's voice in 8 years. When they left the shelter, Claire was quieter than usual. "You okay?" Mason asked as they drove. I thought I knew what homelessness looked like." "I didn't. They're not invisible, Mason. They're just unfocused by the world. Blurred." He nodded. "My dad says dignity is a mirror. You just have to stand close enough for them to see it again." Claire looked at him. Really looked. "You and your dad. You're something else." He smiled. "So, are you?" That night, he walked her up to her apartment door. The street lamp cast a soft glow on the sidewalk. Neither of them moved to say goodbye right away. "I had a good day," Claire said softly. "Me too." They stood there for a second too long. Then she leaned forward. Just a little. He met her halfway. The kiss was gentle, warm, not rushed. It didn't feel like something new. It felt like something that had been waiting patiently for the right moment. When they finally pulled apart, Claire whispered, "Good night, Mason." "Good night, Claire." And for the first time in weeks she went to bed smiling. Not because something had gone right, but because something had gone honest. Claire had just finished watering the dying plants on her tiny balcony when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then picked up. "Miss Harper? This is Sandra Holt, from Skyline Talent Management. I believe you applied with us some time ago?" Claire froze. That had been weeks ago, one of the many freelance agencies that had tossed her aside without a second thought. "Yes, I did," she answered cautiously. "Well, things have changed a bit. There's been some media inquiry, a piece about discriminatory hiring patterns. Your name came up in connection with an incident involving a missed flight and an act of kindness. A journalist traced your portfolio. We might have acted unfairly. Would you be willing to speak with us again?" Claire blinked. She wasn't expecting an apology, let alone interest. "I'm willing," she said carefully, "but I won't lie to make you look better." "We wouldn't ask that," Sandra replied, a touch too quickly. "The journalist might reach out as well. Her name's Kira Dunn. She's with an independent outlet." 2 days later, Claire sat across from Kira in a tiny cafe, her hands wrapped around a chipped coffee mug. The journalist listened intently, barely interrupting. "So let me get this straight," Kira asked. "Finally. You helped a man in need, missed your opportunity, got dismissed without even a review, and never complained." Claire shrugged. "I was upset, sure, but it wasn't news. It's just life. You try to do right, and hope it matters." Kira leaned forward. "Well, it mattered to someone, because the man you helped. We think he's George Baker." Claire's eyes widened. She nodded slowly. It is. Kira smiled. Then this story is bigger than hiring practices. When the article went live 3 days later, it spread faster than anyone expected. Titled "One Flight Missed, One Life Changed," it painted Claire as a symbol of integrity. The woman who stopped for a stranger. The woman who lost something, and never asked for it back. Mason saw it, of course. He was in his office when the notification popped up, his father's face. Claire's name. The story of what happened that day. The story he already knew, but reading it through her words shook something in him. She had no idea who he was, yet she had still acted with grace, courage, and honesty. And now she was being publicly praised, while he was still hiding behind a lie. Mason shut the laptop, and leaned back in his chair, covering his eyes with his hand. He had to tell her. He couldn't keep pretending. But before he could plan how, fate stepped in. Later that week, Claire arrived at Mason's building for a project meeting. He greeted her at the front, smiled, offered coffee. Everything felt normal, until they reached his office. She had never been inside before. It was sleek, minimal, a wall of glass behind his desk, overlooking the skyline. But what caught her eye wasn't the view. It was the photograph. Sitting on a shelf near the window, half hidden by a bookend, was a framed photo of Mason and George, both smiling, both unmistakably close. Claire stepped toward it slowly. "Is that your father?" Mason turned, saw the frame, and froze. "Yes," he admitted softly. Claire didn't speak at first. Her eyes moved from the photo to him, piecing together everything she hadn't seen before. "You told me you worked for a startup." "Technically I do. It's one of mine." "You're the owner," Claire whispered. "Of the airline. Of the company. Of all of this." Mason stepped forward. "Claire, I didn't mean to. All this time, you lied to me." "I didn't lie," he said quickly. "I just didn't tell you everything. I wanted to know you without the title between us. I wanted to see the real you. And what? You thought I'd treat you differently if I knew. Most people do. Claire, you didn't. You were already honest. You were already good. I didn't want to break that." Claire shook her head, backing away slightly. "But you did break it. You watched me struggle. Let me think I was just some temp worker. Let me talk about job rejections, like it was a joke. You could have said something. I didn't want pity. I didn't want power to be part of this. But it was, from the start." She stood there, her breath catching in her throat, overwhelmed by the weight of it all. The job, the meetings, the moments, the kiss, every one of them now painted with a different color. Claire stared at him. "Who are you? Really?" Mason didn't answer right away. "Someone who didn't know how to tell the truth. Not because I don't care, but because I care too much." She turned away, gripping the strap of her bag. "I need time." Claire walked out, leaving him alone in the office, the photo of him and his father still smiling in the background. A frozen reminder of everything he'd built, and everything he might have just broken. Claire spent 2 days walking in circles around her tiny apartment. She didn't sleep much. Every corner of her mind was clouded with contradiction. Mason had lied. Yes, but he had also seen her when no one else did. He had offered her work, respect, even tenderness. And above all, she couldn't forget the way he looked at her. Not like a man with power, but like a man who had finally found something real. Still, trust once cracked was hard to hold. On the third morning, Claire took the train across town and stood once again at the front steps of the community shelter. The same place Mason had taken her to weeks before. She wasn't sure what she was looking for until George Baker opened the door. He smiled, as if he'd been expecting her. "I figured you'd come eventually," he said. They sat at the back in the staff room. Over lukewarm coffee, Claire told him everything. Or rather, she didn't have to. George already knew. "He's stubborn," George said, shaking his head. "Gets that from me. Always trying to prove himself, even when he doesn't have to." Claire looked down at her cup. "He said he wanted to see who I was. That he didn't want the title between us." George nodded. "That's true. But he should have known that the real ones don't care about titles." Claire met his eyes. "Do you think he meant well?" George chuckled. "I always told Mason, don't go chasing the prettiest girl in the room. Marry the one who reaches down to grab your hand when you're lying flat on the asphalt. Claire blinked. Her chest tightened. That sounds like something you've lived. It is, George said simply. And for what it's worth, you grabbed my hand that day. He saw that. He needed to see that. Later that evening, Claire received a text from an unknown number. It only said pack and light. Meet me at Hangar 7. No questions. She hesitated for a moment, then smiled. Despite herself. That night, she stood at the edge of a private airstrip. Cool wind brushing past her hair, a sleek white jet sat waiting under the stars. Mason stepped down the stairway in a simple black jacket, no tie, no crowd, just him. He held out a hand. No titles. No suits, just me. Claire laughed softly and took it. Inside, the cabin was warm and quiet. No staff, no champagne. Just two seats at the front, side by side, facing the controls. Claire raised an eyebrow. You're flying. I used to. Not anymore. But tonight I wanted to remind you where this all started. She sat beside him, her fingers brushing the controls. This is a little dramatic, even for you. Mason smiled. Maybe. But I needed you to know. You're not just a passenger anymore. You're my co-pilot. Claire's breath caught in her throat. The moment hung between them. Quiet and trembling. You lied, she whispered. I did. You scared me. I know. And now you're offering me the sky. He nodded slowly. Only if you want it. She looked at him. Really looked. The man who'd made mistakes, but never mocked her. The man who'd believed in her before the world remembered her name. Claire laughed. A real laugh. The kind she hadn't felt in months. Tears stung her eyes. I hate how much I don't hate you. Then she leaned forward and kissed him. Above them, the stars blurred through the curved windows. The hum of the engine faded into silence, as the plane slowly lifted from the ground, carrying them into a new altitude, a new beginning. Months later, the headlines would read, Claire Harper joins Mason Airlines as strategic advisor and outreach director. Below that, a smaller caption, engaged to CEO Mason Baker, but those were just words. The real story was a woman who stopped for a man on the pavement, and a man who learned to stop hiding behind altitude and legacy. Together they flew not toward status, but toward each other. And this time, Claire wasn't alone in the sky.